This is the CitizenLink Report.
If you find our insights helpful, would you support our video efforts? Your gift of $25 or more goes a long ways. Covers the crew, lights, cameras, all that. Just click on Donate. Thanks from all of us.
The Internal Revenue Service allegedly used keywords such as Tea Party and Patriot to deny approval for groups applying for tax-exempt status. As the IRS scandal grows, what effect will it have on other groups engaged in public policy? This is the CitizenLink Report. Hi, I'm Kim Trobee, along with Tom Minnery, Executive Director of CitizenLink. Hi, Tom.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thanks. We now have more than 500 groups who say they've been targeted by the Internal Revenue Service, and no one really taking responsibility for it.
Well, this is a bad situation all around, and it was inevitable that there would be corruption because there is nothing so fuzzy, so unknown as the rules for being a 501c4 organization. CitizenLink is a 501c4 organization. We've been wrestling with fuzziness for a long time.
Tom, tell me a little bit about what it takes to be a 501c4 organization.
Well,
can we do that in 3 seconds?
First of all, you have a lot of conversations with your lawyers. Political organizations are social welfare organizations contributing to the public good by encouraging people to understand the political process and by putting out voter guides that have to meet certain criteria so people have an idea what candidates stand for. Now, you can be involved in political activity if you are a 501c4 organization, but ask me how much political activity.
Okay, how much political activity?
An insubstantial amount of political activity. What is that? Well, depending on your lawyer, it could be 50% of your activity. As long as you don't go over 50%, then in political activity, then you're doing an insubstantial amount. Our attorneys are much more conservative. We use a much smaller percentage of political activity, down around 20%. This is amorphous. The IRS has never hammered out bright lines for what you can do and what you can't do. So when someone who's got an ideological axe to grind comes in, controlling the IRS, you can see how it gets corrupt.
And it seemed like there were a lot of ideological axes to grind. Acting IRS Commissioner Steve Miller resigned recently, even though he was on the way out the door early in June. Here's a part of his testimony on Capitol Hill that took place on May 17th.
First and foremost, as Acting Commissioner, I want to apologize on behalf of the Internal Revenue Service for the mistakes that we made and the poor service we provided. The affected organizations and the American public deserve better. Partisanship, or even the perception of partisanship, has no place at the IRS. It cannot even appear to be a consideration in determining the tax exemption of an organization.
Now, Tom, this really had nothing to do with mistakes that were made or poor service. It was basically targeting a group of people based on what they believe.
It was without question exactly that. And for the acting IRS commissioner to say, oops, we made mistakes, or gosh, we didn't give you very good service, that really is a statement to be apologized for in itself. Let's talk about one of these hundreds of groups. Let's talk about the King Street Patriots that formed in 2010 to try to see to good elections in Houston. They wanted to check in on voting booth activity. They wanted to be official part of the voting process by becoming poll watchers, and they did that, and they found rampant corruption. They found multiple people registered to vote from vacant lots. Multiple people registered to vote from country club addresses. They found lots of individual houses where there were 6 or more people registered to vote. This is not right. And when they showed up on election day at the polls, they were intimidated by members of the new Black Panther Party who tried to chase them out. Well, they wouldn't go out. And it got so bad that the registrar, the voter registrar of Harris County, Texas, Houston, said, our voter rolls have been taken over by a systematic and organized attempt to undermine the integrity of the voting list. And it all came down to an organization called Houston Votes, which is an arm of something called the Texas Together Education Fund, which is funded by George Soros. So it seems to be left-wing fraud involved here. But then the problems started for the King Street Patriots. The founder of the organization, Catherine Engelbrecht, began to get visits and phone calls by not one, not two, not three, but 4 federal agencies. First of all, the FBI came looking, asking questions about a particular employee of their tiny manufacturing firm that they had. They make machine parts as their business. And then OSHA came, Occupational Health and Safety, whatever OSHA is.
Some administration, yeah, that has to do with workplace safety. Yes.
And they found, well, I see that your forklift operator has a seatbelt, but it's the wrong kind of a seatbelt. Or we see that your machine tool operators wear safety glasses, but they're the wrong kind of safety glasses. On and on it went. It was a $25,000 fine imposed on them. They got it whittled down a bit beyond that. But then it was the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms federal agency came, ATF, because they made parts for a particular gun. And then, of course, it was the IRS. Visit after visit, call after call, question after question. We want to check on your farm that they operated. They wanted to count the cattle. They wanted to check the alignment of the fencing. Odd kinds of activity from the IRS. And lawsuits went back and forth, and it was harassment of the extreme kind, obviously, rooted in corruption, obviously because they themselves had been trying to root out corruption in Harris County, Texas.
So the message is, if you try to shine a light on something that may not be right within the system, you could be targeted by the IRS or by other departments in the government.
Right, and in my memory, I don't know that the IRS has been itself subject to this kind of corruption. This is really, really difficult because the IRS exercises such a heavy-handed influence on the personal financial affairs of all of us. And so when it becomes corrupt, that is a nasty situation.
Tom, some of these groups, there are now more than 500 of them who have reported some sort of investigation by the IRS. Many of these groups are 501c4, so they deal with campaign issues and other things. What does it do for them when they're under investigation and they can't move forward with any of their campaigns?
I think there is going to be intimidation. Quite obviously, the very basic fact is this. A lot of these Tea Party-oriented groups sprang into life in front of the 2010 congressional elections. They wanted to do appropriate activity that's allowable for a 501c4 organization. But they were denied their 501c4 status. They were asked intrusive questions, and the very basic fact is they couldn't get their operation started, couldn't get their activity begun because they didn't get this precious permission from the IRS. So it has already dampened a lot of election activity, and my hope is that the same people who wanted to do that activity in 2010 will rise up and do it in the election cycle that we have just in front of us to make the case that we will not take corruption from the IRS. We want the federal government to stand down, to back off, and to get out of our lives.
So Tom, what needs to be done? Does Congress need to step in and do something to fix all of this?
I think so, and I'm so grateful that the House of Representatives has taken this situation very seriously, and hearing after hearing has already begun. Now, we've heard from the IRS people themselves. When people like Catherine Engelbrecht of the King Street patriots get before those microphones, and I hope they call her, then eye-opening testimony about what has happened in the lives of these people trying to exercise their right of citizenship. When that is exposed, I think there will be a massive outcry, and it is ripe for the picking, because hundreds of these organizations, as you have said, have been harassed and have been denied what is rightfully theirs, including the founder of Focus on the Family, James Dobson. He was trying to start a 501c4 organization in connection with his new radio talk show, Family Talk. Couldn't get it started because of this very problem.
Well, it seems like every day more and more information comes out regarding the IRS scandal, so it's definitely something that we'll be keeping watch over. You can check on it at CitizenLink.com. Tom, we just want to say thank you. You always have great information for us. Thanks for coming on today.
Well, you're welcome. It's nice to be back in touch.
Great. And thanks to all of you who keep in touch with us. We love hearing from you. We love getting your notes of encouragement. And you can always let us know what you're thinking. Just go to mail@citizenlink.com. And we also encourage you to pray for our elected officials and for our nation. There is so much going on, and prayer is really the way that we can get involved and stay involved and make a difference in what's happening. And remember, stand tall and be heard.